Grande Rising everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to have another chat about digital ID. On Saturday, Dan and I were at the London rally against digital ID, along with David Icke, Andrew Bridgen, Fiona Rose Diamond, all of whom were leading the march, and thousands of other freedom fighters. True patriots and warriors. From all walks of life, all cultures, all backgrounds. Now, of course, almost 3 million people have signed a petition that the government may ignore, and thousands who have demonstrated may still be ignored. Keir Starmer said that he's going to press on with the digital ID regardless of any petition. Now, last week there was an outage with Vodafone, then the following day there was one with Virgin Media, and then on Thursday last week there was one with PayPal. So we had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And on Monday, there was over 20 sites affected with a massive outage, including Halifax and Lloyds Bank, which are part of the Bank of Scotland group, and various government sites. So therefore, it should make people think, well, is our data actually going to be safe? Then, I think it was yesterday, I was listening to Talk TV, and they were saying that one of the government contracts had actually gone to Romania, and Romania is one of the worst places in the world for online crime. And the Romanians actually don't have security clearance, but lo and behold, through the annals of Westminster, a contract has been given to Romania. And then Estonia, who Keir Starmer mentioned as having a very successful digital ID scheme, have had another hack. So it's neither safe nor effective in my story anyway. Anyway, while we were there on Saturday, a gentleman passed around a leaflet on people parties. You can serve notice on your MP and MSPs and demand they vote on your behalf against a digital ID. Now, Rupert Lowe has been doing a cross-party letter, and I tagged my MP Polly Billington in to ask her to sign, and somebody else who was probably from my area also retweeted that, but she hasn't signed it as yet. But unfortunately, she is an advocate for this digital ID nonsense. So how it works is that there's a full letter to our MPs which we are signing. On the back there's a QR code, which I don't use. I don't use any QR codes, which is a code to a Zoom call daily, 8 PM, Monday to Sunday. It's a digital ID action Zoom. So to take part, all you do is you scan the QR. So the people parties are people who are getting together to press for positive outcomes to, say, negative policies. So there's a rationale on the front, so you can look at that to see how it resonates with you. There's space for you to put your name, address, mobile, and email, signature, date. Do you want to come to the meeting with your MP and MSPs if you're available? Yes or no? Do you want to campaign in your constituency to get more signatures? Yes or no? Are you able to commit 5 hours to deliver 500 copies of the petition in your areas? Yes or no? Are you able to donate £100 to print 500 A3 folded leaflets to who will deliver them? Yes or no? Now, I would be able to answer yes to the first three, but as I said, I don't do Zoom. Now, if things were done in the old-fashioned way, then I would have been an extra body for the cause. So I am doing it in my own way by talking about it here. It says I serve notice on my MP and demand that they oppose the digital ID in Parliament and demand that they vote on my behalf against the digital ID. And that includes Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, MSP, etc., such as Member of Scottish Parliament. My address will not be made public, however it will be included on the letter serving notice on my elected representatives, as they need to know I am their constituent. My signature will be lodged online on my behalf, where my name and town and date will be displayed, and I agree to being informed by Mark Wilkinson about the progress of this project and the project to create 80 people parties to transform UK politics, including notifications from my local people party. So this is signed by Mark Wilkinson, founder, 79 new people parties for the Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland, party leader, Edinburgh and East Lothian people. So there's a mobile number and email, mark with a C at peopleparties.org. For the 2029 general election, vote for your local people party, not left, not right, just common sense. The second page reads, our policy is the will of the people. Your MP will be bound by an corruptible system, as they will be bound by the constitution of the party to take instructions weekly on how to vote from the majority of the members of the party. You don't have to become a member of the party to do any of what I'm going to be reading to you. Let's turn the reaction triggered by Keir Starmer into transforming politics and fix politics. I don't like the word fix. Transform, not fix. Rebuild, not fix. Fix implies that something's broken and you're just papering over the cracks or gluing things back together. So let's have rebuild, re-establish, transform. Almost 3 million have signed the Do Not Introduce Digital ID Cards petition on our government's website. And I'll put up a screenshot of how many signatures we have so far on that online petition. Despite this, the response from the government published on the petition page is clear that they intend to ignore the petition. Nevertheless, I would urge you to sign it if you haven't done so, mainly to show the rest of the people the sheer magnitude of the support. Now, there's some people who don't want to sign because they say, maybe rightly, that it's data harvesting. However, this is really serious. There is no room, as far as I can see, for wavering on this or not participating. We need the boots on the ground. There's a lot of us who are equally concerned about the possibilities of our data being collected by an online petition, but have stuck our necks out and shown courage and signed it. Using the data collection as an excuse, to my mind, is not a bold move on the chessboard. There's also some people who don't have any internet at all, or who don't use the internet or a smartphone, and they are not able to sign it unless somebody does it for them. Now, this is a biggie because I've been saying now for a little while, online, we need a paper version of the petition so we can gather more signatures than we would do online. It's an extra layer of strength. It's widening the net and garnering a lot more signatures than if you just rely on the online version of a petition. The record petition with 6.1 million signatures in 2019 was to revoke Article 50 and remain in the EU. The petition was also ignored. However, it would be great to beat it. Let's capitalise on the reaction triggered by Keir Starmer and let's build something fabulous. The plan is to inspire the creation of 80 new local people parties for each region of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. 3 million people have given their name, email and postcode to the government. Ironically, there's no mechanism to bring these people together locally on an ongoing basis. Some of us have been talking to others and encouraging them to sign it. Many of our friends and loved ones and people we might meet in the street have been compelled to sign it, but there's still a lot more we can do. Mark Wilkinson says, I'm going to attempt to bring 500 people together per each of our 650 parliamentary constituencies to sign to serve notice on their MP and MSPs, etc. for the devolved nations. It will be harder for individual MPs to ignore 500 constituents who are all connected locally. The plan is for 20 to 50 to come to a meeting with their MP at their office to hand deliver the letter serving notice in person. Hopefully your MP will agree to a photo outside their office with all the constituents, which can be published online and emailed to all the signatories to share on social media. When you sign a petition, you consent to your subservience, which is why it can be easily ignored. Serving notice from one man or woman as equals on another man or woman is far more powerful. The threat is that signatories will consider voting for a small, more democratic party and might get involved in creating a new local party which has direct democracy enshrined within its constitution. The full draft of the letter is below. We will give MPs the option to read the letter out loud, or one of us will read the letter out loud. This is important because we know that MPs often do not read or personally reply to emails. Understandably, these are often dealt with by caseworkers. As I've said before, you don't have to join the People Party if you don't want to. I, for example, am a member of the Heritage Party and I intend to, at the moment, stay as such. However, this is time for cross-party action and we need to all be helping each other achieve the end goal, which is to disarm this terrible idea of mandatory ID. Now, just because you don't sign a petition doesn't mean to say that you have given consent. Consent doesn't have to be explicit or implicit in any way, shape or form. Even if you remain silent, it is not consent. However, it makes it easier for us as individuals if we do sign a petition or letter in whatever shape it may take to let them know that we don't agree to it. Also remember, as my subscriber at Glamorous Lioness pointed out, that consent, if we do give it, can be withdrawn at any time, and if that is unheeded, then it constitutes abuse. It goes on. If we succeed, we will have brought together 325,000 people who will all be able to come together locally in every region. As almost 3 million have signed the petition, our 325,000 target is achievable. It will be more effective, especially if it speeds up the creation of 80 new local people parties. And this is how any party grows and develops and gains strength. It starts at grassroots level, especially if done correctly. So this is the letter to your Westminster MP and in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland your MSP, etc. Dear MP, whoever it is, re digital ID and our constitution. We the undersigned are your constituents. We're writing to you as you are duty bound to represent us. We have grave concerns about the government's proposal for compulsory digital ID. We hereby serve notice on you demanding that you oppose the digital ID in Parliament. If you do not meet our demand, then for future elections, we will consider voting for one of the parties that opposes the digital ID, or we will vote for a local people party whose constitution means that elected representatives are more like elected delegates, as they are bound to take instructions on how to vote on behalf of the electorate directly from the members of the party. Now, you'll remember a while back I did a podcast on a response I'd had from Polly Billington about digital ID, and I did mention that I replied and said that it might be in her interests to listen to the people, because if she doesn't, then it won't end well. So I have already communicated effectively and have done so again on more than one occasion. This will introduce an element of direct democracy to our Parliament through the constitution of the party without having to change our system of democracy. There's a lot of people, it's a cross-party action proposing, instead of first past the post, proportional representation or direct democracy. So, for example, in Austria, you will have an important decision such as digital ID that has to go to a public referendum. That's something that we currently don't have in the UK, and because of our system, the first past the post, it makes it more difficult for seats to be shared more fairly. So there's no level distribution or playing field, which you need for a good game of chess. Please read in full our letter, which explains in detail the constitutional and legal considerations. The issue is not merely administrative convenience, nor even immigration control. It's whether the people of this country remain governed by the rule of law or whether arbitrary power shall become the new normal. The rule of law requires that liberty is the presumption and restraint the exception. A universal biometric register inverts this principle. It would treat all citizens as suspects, compelling them to prove themselves to the state at each turn. Such compulsion is government by power, not by law. And it can also lead to things like CBDCs. Now, I watched a video a few days ago. The gentleman was filming his wife, his Chinese wife in China, who is subject to the CBDC. And I'm going to link that in the description so you can go and watch it. The level of surveillance in China is off the scale, and everything has carbon points. It's very interesting now that there's a brand or two of sandwiches, food companies, who started to introduce carbon footprint on their products. And also it's interesting to note and you must check it if you use either NatWest or RBS app, for example, that they are tracking carbon on what you spend your money on. Now, this is a social construct, because how can you track what scale is being used, what mechanism is being used, what data are being used in order to form an accurate carbon scoring? Ask yourself those things, because I would argue in my story that it's made up a bit like the 2 metres apart during the global incident. Parliament has already provided extensive powers. Immigration Act 1971, foundation of entry, stay and removal powers. Illegal Migration Act 2023 excludes asylum claims via irregular routes. Safety of Veranda Act 2024 authorises offshore processing. Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill 2025 strengthens enforcement and liability. The defect lies in administration and resourcing, not in legislation, to impose biometric surveillance upon 67 million Britons because government fails to enforce the laws it already holds is wholly disproportionate. Human rights and data protection. Article 8 ECHR HRA 1998 guarantees respect for private life. S and Marper versus UK 2008, retention of innocent DNA is unlawful. That was a test case. In other words, it's judicial precedent, and it's used for future cases should they come to court. Bridges versus South Wales Police 2020, live facial recognition is disproportionate. Again, it was another test case. UK GDPR requires Article 5, data minimisation, Article 7, freely given consent, Articles 9 to 10, strict limits on biometrics as special category data. A compulsory ID register cannot meet these tests. Equality and children's rights, because they're trying to roll it out to children as young as 13 for now. Some kids are subjected to fingerprints at school to access the attendance register, for example. Equality Act 2010, Section 19, a digital-only requirement is indirect discrimination disproportionately burdening older citizens, disabled people and minority ethnic groups, as well as those, of course, who do not choose to go along with it. Children's rights protected by Article 16 UNCRC and Article 8 ECHR. The ICO has reprimanded schools for mishandling pupils' biometrics. Extending compulsory ID to minors will multiply these breaches across the nation. Our constitutional inheritance rests upon the liberty of the subject. Magna Carta 1215, no free man treated as suspect by default. That was our written constitution, which is still valid. Bill of Rights 1689 forbids arbitrary executive power. Protection of Freedoms Act 2012 required deletion of innocent DNA. As Dicey observed, the English Constitution rests not on abstract declarations but on entrenched habits of legality. A digital ID would establish the opposite habit, surveillance by default. Biometric property, the paradox. English law already treats aspects of the body as property. Yearworth versus North Bristol NHS Trust 2009. Sperm samples recognised as property. Trademarks Act 1994 permits registration of DNA or fingerprint logos. Copyright law protects caricatures of faces as property. Yet the state denies that a person's real fingerprint, DNA or facial template is their property when it wishes to seize and use them. It is incoherent that I may own a cartoon of my face, but not my face itself. Parliament should legislate for a data trust framework recognising biometric and genetic data as the property of the individual, with state acting only as trustee, subject to fiduciary duties and judicial oversight. Evidence shows that digital ID, once created, will not remain confined to immigration. The Online Safety Act 2023 embeds ID checks into online platforms. The NHS app increasingly serves as a health gateway. I don't use the app. I don't use any of these apps. And I would encourage people to get a dumb phone and discard or minimise the use of a smartphone. For example, even an Android. FCA KYC rules point towards mandatory ID in banking. Again, is it right that you should have to jump through all these loopholes to access your own money? And what if you don't? Will the day come when we're not able to get our money? I'm always suspicious of authorities saying this isn't going to happen. Nothing is going to happen like this again, as Rachel Reeves did with the last budget, and then lo and behold, it happens. We have learned over the last few years in particular that none of these authorities or big business are to be trusted. In my story, the spread from border control to health, finance and political participation is not speculative. It is inevitable. The liberties of the people of this country are not recent inventions, but the inheritance of an indigenous population whose traditions of self-government stretch back through Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights to the present day. Interestingly, I did an O-level, that gives me age away, I suppose, in common law, and this was in the early 1980s. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples 2007, while not binding, is persuasive. It affirms Article 3, the right to self-determination. Article 8, protection from forced assimilation. Article 31, control of cultural identity and genetic resources. To compel every Briton to enrol in a digital ID regime is to assimilate the people of this country into a global identity system, contrary to both our constitutional tradition and persuasive international principle. The World Economic Forum, or WEF, openly advocates interoperable digital identity systems. Reimagining Digital ID 2023, Connected Future Initiative 2025. Once built, a UK digital ID would not remain sovereign. It would align with such global frameworks, diminishing the independence of Parliament and liberties of the subject. Citizens retain complaint to the ICO, Article 77, UK GDPR, and judicial remedy in the courts, Article 79. Compensation for material and non-material damage, Article 82. Judicial review for disproportionality, failure to meet the public sector equality duty, or breach of the doctrine of legality. But remedies after the fact are no substitute for restraint at the outset. The digital identity proposal is unnecessary. Immigration law already suffices. Unconstitutional. It reverses the presumption of liberty. Unlawful under GDPR, the DPA 2018 and the HRA 1998. HR 8 is the Human Rights Act. Discriminatory, contrary to the Equality Act 2010. Expropriatory, treating biometric identity as state property. Internationally inconsistent with ICCPR, UN privacy resolutions and persuasive UNDRIP principles. Externally driven, shaped by unelected international bodies, some of whom remain shadowy figures. It represents a constitutional rupture, the substitution of surveillance for liberty, of arbitrary control for the rule of law. I therefore serve notice on you to oppose the digital ID in Parliament and to uphold the principle that in Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland, liberty remains the rule, restraint the exception, and identity the property of the people, not the state, and not unelected foreign bodies. Yours faithfully. Signed by 500, we hope, constituents per constituency. Names and addresses to be listed below and delivered face to face. Now, I think that's pretty good, and bearing in mind that the government wished to capture 8 million company directors before the 18th of November into this online, what I see as a nightmare, and for anybody out there who is a company director and is concerned about what's going on, I would ask you to look at content by the Black Belt barrister who always gives good advice. There's also Stephen Barrett, who's also a barrister, and you might also write, for example, to seek an exemption by using some of this, as well as other areas of the law, because again, if you're not being given a choice, and some people have been locked out when they've tried to register on the system. So that in itself is wrong, that people are not given a choice, and there seems to be no way of contacting these authorities in order to get the matter resolved, especially when it affects your ability to carry on in trade and make an income. It's wrong that you have to do things in this way, and even when you do, the system doesn't like what you put into it and locks you out. Now, thank you for staying to the end if you have done so. I would appreciate any comments that you have. I did think twice about bringing this to you because I don't want to dox those who are doing such formidable work, but I felt that it's of such importance that I needed to talk about it. Not everybody, like myself, uses QR codes, and some people prefer to do things the old-fashioned way, and if it can get out to more people as well than were there on Saturday, which was thousands, then every effort counts. So please share and subscribe if you like what I do, and ding the notification bell. Have a look at what else I've got in my vault. I've got all manner of interesting topics, and I will see you soon for the next one. Until then, bye for now.